Okay, so I'm here today interviewing Dr. Lee Grehan, the director of the Sparks Bureau of Business and Economic Research at the University of Memphis. And he has been working here for over 30 years now. So he's going to share some of his management and leadership advice with me today. So first, I just want to ask you to tell me a little bit of an overview about your work history before you settled down at the University of Memphis.
Sure. And let me mention, just say thanks for inviting me. And it's good to see you. And I hope, maybe I'll have something to share, I hope. But before I came to the university, as soon as I got out of graduate school, I worked for a couple of years for DeSoto County, Mississippi, and then for Shelby County, Tennessee, for the county governments. And what I was doing was I was helping both those governments run and manage and implement some job training programs. And so I had gotten my master's degree, had been in kind of human resource management. So I was working for the two local governments at different times, helping on job training programs. So I would oversee the programs, manage the staff, help set up training classes and things like that. And so in '84, I came back to the university thinking I had been a graduate student for the Bureau. And I came back thinking I was only going to be here a year or two because I had a special project, contract research project going on that they needed some help on. So I came back thinking I'd do it for a couple of years and then go back out into the real world. And found it, I kind of was fascinated by the university, research work. And so I stuck it out, and here 32 years later, I'm still around.
Still here.
That's right.
So how would you say your leadership and management style has kind of evolved from your time working for local government to now working at the University of Memphis?
Well, I think probably the biggest difference is, working at a university, a research unit at a university where you're surrounded by faculty and research staff, highly credentialed individuals. It's a lot different than managing a staff of, say, secretaries or office assistants, things like that. In that, you've got to realize these individuals that you're working with are very accomplished, at least as accomplished as you are. They've spent time working on their education, and that they're here doing what they're doing because they have a real interest in it, and they want to kind of push the envelope as much as they can. So the trick is understanding, who to recruit. And then once you get them on board, how to give them the resources they need, keep them kind of focused on goals, but then pretty much stay out of their way so that they can get the job done. And it's a balancing act that you might not see, off of a university campus. It's that ability to motivate, keep people involved, keep an eye on the prize, but stay out of their way.
Right. And just so when you started off with working for the local government, that wasn't how you did things? It was a little more hands-on, you would say?
Much more so because, in local government, you have the responsibilities to not only to your supervisors, but also to the community as a whole, especially when you're using local government resources. So much more. I'd like to think I was not, someone who looked over everybody's shoulder constantly, but there was probably a little bit more, involvement with the employees than I might have here. We really look for, on a university campus, these kinds of jobs, you really look for self-initiators. So people who can be given a task and you can trust them to get it done. In the local government, you've got individuals who sometimes, want to be told not only what to do, but how to do it. And that kind of thing.
So you kind of had to make some adjustments there going from the local government to Memphis. So but it seems like, I mean, you've been at the University of Memphis for 32 years now. It's
Yep.
really impressive. So what would you say, like what aspects of your leadership and management style would you say have given you this staying power here? Would you think it's that what we were talking about earlier, the like kind of like telling people what to do, then like knowing when to back off and let them do their job?
I think so. I think probably where I've been successful is being able to recruit and participate with a lot of talented people who, as I said, they kind of, they've worked a long time on their doctorates or their educational credentials, and they want to make sure that they can do something with it. So you want to really give them the opportunity to do that, but recognize when, they need some help,
Right.
or maybe not help, but they just need a collaborator that
Right.
you can work with and say, I think I've seen this sort of thing somewhere else. Why don't we do this? And so I think that's helped. A university, it's a kind of a weird organization in some respects, in that everybody, it's a group of individuals. If you're going to be a success in a university, you got to, publish or perish type stuff. So you've got to really, it's you working maybe with a couple of other people, but it's really you trying to demonstrate your credentials and your worth and your abilities.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, in a research unit, you've got to have other people around, because you just can't be everything.
Yeah.
So you got to have a statistician. You've got to have a econometrician. You've got to be able to bring all those people together. So hopefully, I guess I'm here this long. So I guess I've been doing something right.
It sounds like it, definitely. So what are some of the management challenges you face at the University of Memphis? Just like over the past years?
Well, one of the biggest challenges you can imagine, and I suspect you see it a lot in Louisiana, is when we're really in situations where we're battling for resources from the state.
Yeah.
We've gone through, since I've been here, for example, and have been in this role, which has been about for 15 years, we've had some serious budget crises where we've had to reduce our budgets fairly substantially. And because of what we do is we try to protect the staff, because that's the people that actually do the work, clearly.
Right.
Which means we've had to give up a lot of resources, operating types of resources. So then it becomes a matter of how can we replace those. So I think that's been one of the real challenges, is protecting the staff, but ensuring that we have the resources necessary to get the job done.
Right. Definitely. I guess that's definitely another balancing act you have to do. Like as a manager, like make sure you have the resources, then you also want to like protect your people. So
yeah, especially when you invest in people, for several years,
right.
So they become very, one of the things we do a lot of are, revenue forecasting for the city of Memphis. So you get staff who kind of become familiar with the city of Memphis budget and how the revenue flows in and out and all that. And so after several years, they're pretty good at that. Well, the last thing you want to do is lose them.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's been a real challenge, and it's happily we're kind of in a good spot right now, but who knows?
Yeah, I guess that kind of thing probably can just change like
overnight.
Just
about.
Yeah, so you have to be ready whenever, I'm assuming.
Right. Exactly. Okay. And you got to try to look outward, obviously doing revenue forecasting, you would think we would have a sense of, the next bump in the road when it's, maybe before other people, but usually we're just caught kind of flat-footed when the state decides that, oh, well, we're going to cut university budgets by X%.
Yeah, sounds very stressful. So another thing I want to talk to you about is how you hire people. So like how would you say you hire people, and what qualities do you really look for in potential employees?
Well, again, I think university, it's kind of a different method than maybe you would see in, like for FedEx and things like that,
Right.
in that the first thing we really look at are educational credentials. We're going to look for research staff. So you're going to look for people who have completed their doctorates or their masters, and that it's in an area that if we're going to be doing a big project for the state on, the economic impact of a new plant being set up somewhere in the state, or the state infrastructure improvements that have to take place to get that plant to come here, then you're going to look for someone who's got, obviously a degree in an area, whether it's, forecasting or statistics or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
you want to look and see if the work they did in their academic career is kind of similar. And then you
Right.
start to look and see if they have worked other places, what did they do? And did they do things that are similar to what you do? So university, first thing probably is credentials, maybe certainly educational credentials, maybe a lot more than say in the private sector.
Yeah, that makes sense. So are there any interview questions you're trying to hire someone that you like make sure you always want to ask? Or you just kind of interview people based on their like credentials and personality? How do you
How do
go?
we do that? Well, first of all, you look, at least I do, we look at the credentials. And if it's a degree from a good program, good school, in an area that we're interested in, obviously someone with a degree from history, we might not be
Yeah.
as interested in as an economist.
Right.
And then a lot of times we'll do at least the first interview by phone or by Skype or something. And then if we get them on campus, then we talk to them about the specific work they've done. Tell us about your dissertation. Tell us, about these papers on, monetary policy. And so you kind of and then you try to get a sense of how they might work in a collaborative organization.
Right.
You want someone who's, again, a kind of a self-starter, who's
Mm-hmm.
not going to require a lot of hand-holding.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the way we go about it, or I do anyway.
Yeah. Okay, I just have one more question for you.
Sure.
And it is, what advice would you give to graduating college seniors?
Well, I think what I would do is, and I hope this doesn't sound kind of trite, but I would really encourage a college senior, if you can, and you get out of the program, pursue what it is you've been studying. If you really wanted to be mass communications, for example, give it a shot. Don't get discouraged. Don't go looking for the buck or the money initially. Spend some time trying to really, advance the things that you've been studying and if you really have a passion for. When I first got out of the graduate school, someone once told me, look, now that you got a job, you got a steady paycheck, all that, try to continue to live like you're a graduate student for a few years, because that way you can kind of, if something happens, you want to change, you can do it. You don't have a lot of debt. You don't, have a home. You can kind of be flexible and you can kind of pursue your own goals. So I would say that, first of all, if you can, get out, try to pursue the things you've been studying, even if it doesn't look like it's going to be financially very rewarding initially. Give it a shot and see if it might be something you really have a passion for.
Right.
The second thing I would do is, especially for somebody like your age, is unless you're really dying to come back, and I hope your family doesn't get mad at me for saying this, but unless you're really dying to come back to your home to be around your family, I would really kind of look around at those cities that seem to be really doing very well and seem to be doing really, are the places that people your own age really seem to be attracted to. The one thing I think we found out after this last big recession is that the recovery has not been equally distributed across the country. There's some places that are doing great, some places are not so great. uh, cities like Denver, Nashville, even Dallas, Phoenix. Those cities are really doing very well. Their economies are growing. Denver, especially for young people, seems to be a hot place to land. So unless you're really, interested in coming back home, and if you've got any flexibility at all, I would say, look around, look at those other areas. You might really find some opportunity there that you don't expect. And then finally, if this is it, you're graduating, you're not going back to school, you've had enough, you want to go out and live your life, I would just say, don't get complacent. Once you get your job, whatever that is, don't get complacent, because the other thing we've seen from the data from this last big recession is that a lot of the people that lost their jobs were kind of mid-level managers, people who had been in a career or with a company for quite a long time, and then something happened, that company couldn't make it, and then they're out on the street and they're having a hard time getting back into the economy because the economy's changed on them so much. So you've heard, I'm sure, the concept of lifelong learning. Well, to the best of your ability, even if you don't go back to school or take classes, whatever you're doing, try to always be on top of what's going on in your field, in your industry, and just be open to new ways of doing your job, because you don't want your company to just get bought out or close up, and then you discover that, wow, everything I've been doing is yesterday.
That is really good advice and very practical. I very much appreciate it. And thank you so much for talking with me today.
Sure.
It's been very great, and I really appreciate it. You've been given some great words of wisdom, so thank you so much.
Well, I hope so. Well, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate that. And I hope things go well for you.
Thank you so much.
All right, you take care.
Bye. You too.
Bye. See you later.
Bye.